part of Resilient Lincolnshire Executive Talk Series. My name is Dr. Judith John, and I'll be your host today. Modern management concept places great emphasis on an orderly approach to the future. In the financial area, this is reflected in detailed plans with near and distant horizon, and in comprehensive budgetary control. Budgetary control here is seen as the integrating document for corporate strategy and action. The financial plan under the current crisis must do more than include the best available information about the economic and competitive environment in which the business operates, and establish target for sales and profit to be achieved by certain date. It must also promote the coordination of resources and effort to reach this target position, and form the basis for measuring performance as the future unfolds. In particular, under the current pandemic, it becomes so important to see how accounting information system can be used in emergency management. But before we do that, it's important to understand accounting as an anticipatory system. For us to dive more into it, I would like to share my screen. So, moment. We know that uncertainty has been a big part of business experience. But the question is business objectives still insensitive to this unexpected change? And how does accounting system as an anticipatory system help business to enter this period of uncertainty, to help them adjust its approach to the future following the current pandemic? If accounting system is expected to be used as an anticipatory system, there's a need for information in the most useful way to be designed for management to make informed decisions and take on greater importance at this time. The only issue is that it requires an organization to have analytical capability beyond its normal business current planning cycle. It needs a formulation of a strategy to deal with these unknown, both in terms of measurement of key indicators, and providing simulation models to deal with these uncertainties. The key thing is, to do that, we need an accounting system, tools, and artifacts that can help business achieve great purposes in emergency, for which it is designed for. The only problem is, in order to operate an anticipatory system, in order to use it to achieve these great purposes in emergency, the organization needs to have people that have the appropriate skills to handle this system and use it purposefully, know what they're trying to achieve in terms of what is the objective under the current crisis. Is it survival? Is it growth? Is it profitability? Have chosen to try and accomplish something for which the system is suitable. So, in effect, accounting as anticipatory system requires action. It requires people. There's system on one side and there is people on one side. there is limitation. And the limitation under the current approach of accounting system as an anticipatory system in emergency is about the organization capacity to generate and adapt to a new plan. Capacity, capability, and knowledge is different if the changes are moderate, because within every accounting financial plan, the variance and spare capacity within the annual planning cycle will take care of them if an organization uses a budgetary control system. But if the changes under the current circumstances or crisis is major, then it might require an interruption of the normal planning cycle. When we talk about major interruption, that keys into innovation within the planning cycle. Because the question is whether the business operation in this crisis is doing all it can to handle the problem of unforeseen event. But before we can look at how accounting can be used in emergency, it's important for us to talk about what accounting is. It's important to give context. What is accounting? What are the key terminologies and concepts? What are those tools and artifacts that we need? Accounting is a language of business. Accounting allows business owners to understand performance, what is working well, what isn't working well, and to make strategic decisions. And for that reason, accounting is seen as a series of processes and techniques used to identify, measure, and communicate economic information for informed judgment and decision by all users of the information. Given this specification of identification, measure, and communicate, we're saying that accounting is a model with 3 dimensions, and their interactions is how meaning is provided to data. So in essence, the meaning of information, when we talk about information, we're talking about information for strategic decision making, can only be defined with reference to a system that is able to organize information. That system should contain substance in which information is communicated. So let's look more in details about those 3 key dimensions or specifications that we talked about as forming the interaction on how meaning is provided. These 3 key are what forms models accounting system as an anticipatory system. Collecting. So these are raw data. It could be qualitative data. It could be quantitative data. For example, characteristics of your customers, the demand on the market, prices, then analyzing them. So analyzing, measuring them, giving them meaning, and then communicating them. The essence is that it allows users to make informed judgment and decision. But before that, it's important to look at the different types of accounting, because when I'm talking about accounting as an anticipatory system or accounting as a tool to be used in emergency, it's important for us to give a focus to what aspect of accounting I'm referring to. There are two types of accounting. We have the financial accounting and we have the management accounting. So accounting as a subject is typically split into two primary types. Financial accounting is concerned with how businesses prepare financial statements, like income statement, which is your profit statement or statement of performance for external users. While your management accounting is about preparing reports for internal users. And the differences between these two is about the intended users, the time period of the financial reporting, and standardization. One, management accounting is bespoke. So what is the focus of today? In terms of strategy in an emergency, I'm referring to management accounting. That's the new focus. Previous focus is financial accounting. It's about income statement for external user. No, I'm looking at a strategy to be used within an organization. So the focus of today's talk is primarily on management accounting. So let me tell you a little bit more of why management accounting is the focus. Let's think about the current crisis. Life has suddenly stopped. Shops are closed. Businesses are at standstill. But then, inherent within organization are certain costs that has to be paid regardless of whether the business is continuing or the business has paused. And one of those key costs are what we call fixed costs in accounting, like rent. So using management accounting as a strategy in emergency is about looking at how we can manage those costs. So management accounting is about distinguishing between fixed and variable costs, looking at cost behavior for decision making, those that varies with changes in activity and those that don't, because currently there's no activity, but certain costs are still being incurred. Management accounting is about details, is about range, is about qualitative information and factor. Remember, financial accounting is to maximize value, but that's not the aim and objective in a crisis. The aim and objective of organization in a crisis is about preserving the continuity of the flow of funds. So cash becomes king. It's about survival. How do we survive and come out pretty well at the end of the crisis? Make profit and still grow the business. That requires accounting as an anticipatory tool. Management accounting have the potential to help us limit damage and reduce the cost of dealing with emergency. So what I'm saying is, in time of crisis, when the unknown becomes a new known, the pandemic is an unknown, but it's a new known because we already know what to anticipate. We know what the environment is like. The purpose of accounting system here is to help us identify key data, key informations about the impact of the crisis on the organization business objective, measure it, and communicate those data to management so they can improve their strategy under this current pandemic. So management accounting, which is our focus here, help us to create that new certainty, help us to incorporate new information that allows management to make informed decisions. But for me to explain how the tool works, I'm going to introduce a concept. Remember earlier on we talked about accounting having 3 dimensions. I want to keep the same theme. So I'm going to introduce 3 key dimensions of dealing with a program on the crisis. Is a realist approach to program development or intervention. A realist approach looks at 3 key dimensions, which is the environment or the context in which the business operates, and look at mechanisms in operation and what outcome the business intends to achieve. So in terms of anticipatory system, it is an interaction of these 3 key dimensions, an interaction between the environment, the mechanism, and the outcome. So when we talk about mechanism, we are looking at causal patterns which produces outcome in a particular environment. So the causal patterns in this instance is the accounting models or accounting system, tools and artifacts, and the action of the agent in the organization, which is management or those responsible for taking strategic action. So to throw a bit more light on that, this is how we can explore accounting system in emergency management. The context is the environment, the mechanism is the enabling, is the organizational intent that can be translated into strategic action. So it's technically an efficiency enhancing option, the resources that is available to the organization, and the capability. While the environment, remember, in a period of crisis, the environment provides us with new opportunities. Every crisis provides a new opportunity for organization to be innovative, for organization to plan, for organization to strategize, to create value for various stakeholders, and as well as creating modes for revenue generation. So when you have that new opportunity and you have an enabling mechanism, the organization gets the desired outcome and objectives they plan for, whether the objective is about survival, profitability, or growth. In designing accounting system as an anticipatory system, the starting point is always about the environment. Organization, businesses, managers need to ask themselves, what is the unique environment the business is facing now? Outbreak of a pandemic, which we know, which is, to mention a few, could be anything, could be the outbreak of a war, which give rise to issues about the coordination of resources and effort to reach target position. Flow and mobility of funds, cash flow, sales giving rise to cash, resource constraints, which is inventory, supply chain management. there could be others that this unique environment is providing or that businesses are facing. It could be the actions of competitors on price of product as a result of the pandemic. It could be government interference as a result of the pandemic. The key thing is that these events can occur with little or no warning. Management accounting allows us to plan. So the key question is, in terms of application, what can management do? How can management use accounting information system to minimize the flight mechanism and maximize the fight mechanism? Because under a crisis, there are two things that could happen. Given the current situation, for organization to feel they cannot deal with it, so that's flight. Or we have to put in everything we have to succeed. That's the fight mechanism. But to do that, we need two key variables. First, as an organization, you need to understand your purpose, the implication of the crisis on your outflow, on your profit, on your survival, on your growth. And then tailor the accounting system and activity to your purpose. The idea is, if you do that, if you understand your purpose and tailor the accounting system, it enables you to balance your cash flow. Then you're not going to have issues with flow and mobility of funds. Allows you to protect your profit. Management accounting allows you to do that because it helps you organize information search into the future. So there's a planning element of the what if. Stimulate the future because you're going to explore a range of alternatives. Identify points where surplus or deficit of resources may be expected. The idea is, if you make those assumptions, identify those points, because you're stimulating the future, it allows you to plan to cover those deficiencies. It allows you to plan to use those surplus to meet your expected end. And then take action to preserve the continuity of the flow of funds and resources. So this is the key deliverable about an accounting system as an anticipatory system. Anticipatory system is about the future. It's about organizing the information search into the future, stimulating the future, identifying points, using budgets, whether it's operational budget, production budget, sales budget, cash budget, and take the necessary action to preserve the continuity of this flow of funds. But to do that, it requires a process. You have to develop the process. In the financial system, first element will have to be your reaction. Is it fight or flight? And if it's fight, then the accounting mechanisms or models or tools that you need is scorekeeping. Scorekeeping, gathering the data that you need, attention directing it to the key areas that you need help with, and problem solving. which allows you to innovate. Innovation here is seen as an outcome. The innovation allows you to achieve your ultimate objective. So think about it as a car. When we talk about accounting system as a mechanism, think about it as a car. A car is a machine. And in that car, there are different attributes. So it's like a collection of gears, clogs, and levers. They are all connected to get the car moving. So accounting system is similar. It's a mechanism in an organization connected so as to achieve a result. It's fundamental to individual organizations. So it's contextual. It's different with different results and meanings in organization. It has magnitude, direction, and momentum. Let's take a look at using the three key dimensions that we talked about, or how we can apply accounting system, because it's a program, a concept, accounting system as an anticipatory model. Thinking about the CMOs, or the environment, mechanism, and outcome configuration. The environment, when we said earlier, we talk about the environment being the current situation, the now of the business, the context, what is happening to business operation. Is there a change to funds flow because of lack of demand? Is there time constraint? Does it require people and effort? Are we having short of inventory of resources because of issues with supply chain? Have our customers' buying pattern changed? Because think about it, in a period like this, consumption becomes about items that consumers consider a necessity. So it's about looking at your environment and then looking at the mechanism, which is the development of infrastructures and actions that can help us connect, make a progression from the environment to the outcome. So in accounting, some of those tools and artifacts that we're talking about is budgeting and contingency analysis. Remember in the earlier slide, we talk about stimulating the environment. We talk about collecting information to see whether there's surplus in one period or there's deficit in one period, and looking ahead to see how we can deal with those surpluses and those deficits. Differential analysis, cost volume profit analysis, which is the relationship between the cost, the volume, and the profit. The mechanism here allows us to make a connection, a logical connection, progression between environment and outcome, where the environment is point A in our model and outcome is point B. Let's take a look at an example, a scenario that some of you probably be familiar with. Let's see how that applies to this particular theory. Look at this first scenario. In a crisis, a fashion house, one of those big fashion houses, might be dealing with uncertainty in terms of demand. Demand for perfume, if people consider it a necessity, nobody is going out, we're all under lockdown. So wearing perfume might not really, the current pandemic might not drive demand for perfume, but it might drive demand for hand sanitizer. Accounting information system helps management under these circumstances to collect information, measure those information, analyze it, and communicate it for management to be able to decide if they should invest more in manufacturing perfume, or do they switch their resources into hand sanitizer. So they know about what the environment is, the input or the information that will be required that can be collected by management accounting. Remember earlier on when we talked about the differences between management accounting and financial accounting, we say management accounting is flexible, is bespoke, it has qualitative, the range of data is large. They will need the relative demand for each product, actions of competitors. What are other fashion houses doing? Are they switching resources? Is there a market for it? What are the inventory of resources that we have available? And do we have suitable labor? These are information that management account will help us by helping us develop infrastructures and that can be used for actions by managers. Information in this instance, the action or the infrastructure in this instance could be cost volume profit analysis, looking at both of them and looking at which one in terms of break even, or which one has a positive NPV in terms of investment, because when you're switching resources, you're investing in one or the other. And think about target costing. There are other similar scenarios. Hold on a minute. Sorry, the system just paused somehow in a minute, but we're back on. And then we're going to go to look at other scenarios. We looked at, should we invest more in perfume or do we switch resources into hand sanitizers? The key thing is about, it doesn't matter what the organization does at this moment. It's about how quick and effective is the accounting system to respond to those unexpected events. This is another example that we will be we're all familiar with. Under the current pandemic, we're being asked or advised to wear face masks and protective clothing. So for such organization, it will be about, should we use the resources that we have to manufacture cotton dresses and warm coats? Should we switch them into making face masks and protective clothing? Here is another scenario. We've all been going online more now, Zooming, talking to our families and friends using technology. And for a technology company or a shop that sells or deals in technology, there's a question about Should we continue to offer repair services as support for our sales of electronic gadgets, or should we just concentrate on just selling laptops and mobile phones? Because under the current situation, will customers be able, even if their system breaks down, be able to send it in for repairs, or would they rather have one delivered to meet the needs of the current crisis? So the input in this situation is about research on volume of sales, the sales mix, information about the sales mix, what other retail companies are doing, the cost of repairs. When we talk about the cost of repairs, if you're having very little repairs under the current crisis, the labors that you are paying, or can you move them somewhere else where they'll be needed? What is the profit margin? And then develop one of these infrastructures to help move us from point A to point B, which is the outcome. There are other types of scenarios as well. Soap powder and toothpaste. But then there are challenges in application of this system. One of those challenges is understanding management accounting tools, especially planning, control, and decision-making tool. Understand what management accounting is and what is not, because it's a new way of thinking. And remember that in applying management accounting tool and technique, it requires considerable work and analytical effort, demands considerable technical expertise, needs the ability to set boundaries and consider different methods and techniques in the system. Because in accounting, we have different methods and techniques. It could be marginal costing, absorption costing, and standard costing, and getting the right kind of data needed, and managing those data to enable innovation to take place in crisis. So, to conclude, in time of crisis, firm can implement a variety of strategy with information provided by sound management accounting system. The strategy could be portfolio strategy. Accounting information system can help us with information for divestment, consolidation, withdrawal, launching new product if it's growth strategy. Cost focus. Are we trying to reduce costs so that we survive? How do we fund our funds flow to deal with the surpluses or the deficits? Should we reschedule our debt? Should we raise equity? Should we liquidate some assets that currently we can't use based on the situation in the current crisis? The key thing to remember is these strategies can be implemented through a range of revenue generation and efficiency enhancing action. Revenue generation that can keep us afloat, balance our profits, and manage our cash flow to enable us survive and emerge strongly as economic conditions improve. Thank you for listening. I'll be taking questions now. So I'll be taking question now and comment. Okay, so thank you for those of you who are commenting. I will be taking some questions. Okay, I'll take a question from Howard, please. Howard is asking, Judy, do you think the accounting profession are sufficiently prepared to take on the approach you are proposing and is much more risk prone than financial accounting? Howard, this is technically not, like I said, the focus in crisis is not financial accounting. The focus is management accounting. And for that to work, the organization itself needs to have a system in place. At the start of the presentation, I talked about having a system that is built to anticipate emergencies and having the right kind of people with the skills. It will require a lot of analytical focus. So within the organization, it's about the resources and the capability that the organization have to be able to deal with that. So if you're a management accountant, a professional within the organization, and this organization have the capability of the system, of course, under the current crisis, businesses should be able to deal with that type of risk, because that's what it is. Remember, it's about risk and internal control, and they merge together. Having a system that works allow organization to respond in this period of uncertainty. Okay, so I'm going to take another question. I'm going to take another question from Kat. Kat says, if businesses could implement one takeaway from this, what will it be? One key thing to think about that you can take away from this is be willing to look at your purpose, because that's a key thing. It's about looking at your purpose under the current climate. What do you want to achieve? For some business, it's about survival. For some business, it's about profitability. Let's survive now. If we can survive and keep the business afloat, keep our workforce because they've got the skills, we don't want to lose them to our competitors. It's about looking at the accounting system that you have, developing the workforce that you have to be able to use those systems to meet those objectives. So think about it as a plan that can be changed. So it's not rigid. It's about being innovative. It's about looking at your environment, scanning it and finding what currently is happening. What is your purpose and what capabilities and resources do you have to achieve that? And accounting information help you do that. It's about gathering data. And it's about how fast you can act within the current climate. Okay, I'm going to take another question from Howard. He said, I guess. So another question from Howard. He said, I guess I'm thinking more about SMEs who may rely far more on external accountant than a large company will do. Okay. The key thing is, even with external accounting firm, most external accounting firms are really geared towards financial reporting for external users, for meeting with stakeholders like government, taxation, helping you prepare your financial statement. But even within those professional accounting firms, there are those who can help you prepare and project a plan that you can actually use to work with. If you cannot, for a small business, it might be difficult, because one of the key things I talked about in my concluding summary is that it requires considerable effort and technical expertise. If you don't have that within your organization, there are those who can help. The most important thing is that if you invest in resources that gives results, in the long run, it will pay for itself. It might be expensive, but you need those information to stay afloat. So invest in those expertise and allow them to help you grow your business or help your business to survive during this crisis. Okay, I've got another comment here. I say, thank you so much, Judith. We're in business and experienced the adrenaline surge and almost took the flight approach. Okay, that's the key thing about it. It's about, this is not a time to actually take the flight approach. It is a time to fight. What makes us take the flight approach is fear, because sometimes we undermine the resources that we have, or we don't know the capabilities that we have, or we don't have the right tools to manipulate the resources that we have. So it's always good to anticipate. So my advice will be, because businesses will always be faced with uncertainty. So it's always important that you build a slack into your system to enable you, in the event of a crisis, to not have a flight mechanism, but a fight mechanism, because you've built in this anticipatory system within your current planning period. That's what is important. And there's still time for us to do that. We still have time for us to do that. This is a time to readjust our way of thinking, our way of using accounting tools and systems within our organization. Think about the what if. Build a model that will address that. Okay, so let's see more questions. Okay, so thank you very much. There will be a lot more series of webinar and talk on resilient Lincolnshire. Please, by all means, tune in, engage with us. If there's anything that you would like us to talk about, that you care about, please drop us a comment, and then we can look at how we can develop a talk series. Let's have a conversation. Let's have a conversation on how we can manage businesses to survive. We need businesses in our society because they create jobs, they are part of the system, they are part of the culture, and they are part of the fabrics of the society. So let's look at how we can forge ahead under the current crisis. So drop us a comment, tell us something you would like to see as we organize a talk series on resilient Lincolnshire, surviving and pushing forward in the face of adversity. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you for joining me this morning. Thank you.